Okay everyone, Narlock here. Just a video to explain how to operate this new ultra heavy lift helicopter from Napa. It's designed to lift ISOs, so these 4 winches are in position spaced enough to be able to just drop the winches down and pick one up. You do want to do so from as low a height as possible though, because the longer the winches dangle, the more they can move around, and that can be a problem. We also have a central winch for picking up things that can be picked up with one small connector. And of course, being large winches, they have a 100-meter extension, which is going to be better off used for dropping things off rather than trying to pick them up from such a distance. It's got 2 jet engines which power a single generator, a large one to power all 3 rotors, which are powered electrically. There's also 2 jet exhausts at the back to produce thrust, which allows it to do up to 200 knots. So getting inside the cabin, we have 2 breakers. This one only really use it if you have a problem with ignition, if you left something on and left the helicopter and you come back and the turbine's not not turning the jets over. If you've still got 50-60% power, flipping this switch will enable you to turn them over and get enough power to get started. But if you're lower than that, it may not help. Which is why you always want to turn the main power switch off when you leave the helicopter. The doors will always work, but everything else relies on this main power breaker. So getting into the winch operator's seat, you have command over the central winches separate to the 4 outside winches, the corner winches. They work as one piece. We've got a panel to give you information on the extension of the corner winches, which of course work as one group, and also the center winch. There's indicators to tell you if the center magnet or the corner magnets are connected, and the corner magnet commands are in the same place as they are on the fuselage, so the back corner is the one furthest away from you in the same corner, and then this one, front corner. Alright, so I'll put that away and then move to the pilot seat. I better close that door too. So from the left we have fuel in 2 different tanks. They use it at the same rate, so it's essentially 1,000 litres of fuel that you want to be watching wear down. When that gets to about 500, then you'll have this low fuel indicator come on. You also have another indicator up here to tell you when the altitude hold is on, because that's a hotkey for engage altitude hold. Then you have wheel brakes, instrument panel, which drops down here, and then your cockpit lights, and up there is your keypad to set the altitude hold. That's your altitude displayed in meters, bearing, and rate of climb. Down here we have your battery, which you can see is already diminishing. It's a very small battery on board in order to save weight, which means that you will always want to have the generator running when you intend to operate the helicopter. If you use the rotor throttle here when you don't have the generator running, you will very quickly have a flat battery. So first thing to do is press 3, generator on off. That drains the battery very quickly as it's turning over the compressors. But once the jet catches, and then a few seconds delay for it to spool up, the generator will engage, and you can see that when this, you will see this dial leap when that happens. We can use a little bit of thrust to get us out of the hangar. Oh, you heard the generator just kick in then. Speed nice and slow. Once we're out of the hangar, and because the charge is now coming in, we can fire up the rotors. So I'm using back and forward to control the thrust. Left and right is for yaw, which you won't have any of when you're on the ground. You can't taxi, there's no, as in that you can't turn while you're taxiing. This is just for a straight forward movement for the jets. If you have the rotors going, then you can either air taxi, or you can taxi and rotate while you're on the ground. But generally speaking, you'll want to do so in the air. So alright, what we're going to do first is set altitude to 100 meters, engage the altitude hold, and then now we can just throttle all the way up. You can do this manually or using the hotkeys. 5 and 6 control the rotors. We've also got landing gear and navigation lights I'll show you when we're underway. You can see the PID system slows down as we get there, and now we're at 100 meters. So we want to do this mission here, which is over that way, 14 kilometers. I'm going to use my left and right arrows to yaw. In helicopter mode like this, it does have a bit of momentum when it yaws, so I'm going to pull back now. You want to stop yawing before you get to your target, and then be prepared to counter yaw a little. Once it gets stabilised, so it's fine, and it can roll and pitch like a normal helicopter. But it's best if you want to go long distances to line up and then use up and down arrow and throttle up with the jet. Now the PID will adjust. You need to use a little bit of yaw to get yourself facing the right direction again. We're doing over 100 knots now. And if you want to get maximum speed out of it, hold down Alt for your trim menu, pressing W and get you to feed that forward pitch in. You want to stop at about 0.4, 0.41 maybe, and this is your rate of climb. So currently we're just over 100 meters, so it's negative. If you pitch forward a little bit too far, say 45, 46, it will not be able to keep up anymore. So I'm losing height. If you come back to 41 or so, you'll see that it'll then go back into the positive. So this means it's able to keep the height that you want. So you'll go around about 195, 200 sometimes knots when you're doing this. It doesn't seem to be going that fast right now. I've got full throttle, 0.41. Well, I might have to revise that to 180 knot cruise. So it's still coming up on it pretty quickly. This won't take long at all. The only issue, of course, is that because I'm solo today, I have to land on top of the refinery silos, get out, go down and move the truck, disconnect the mud pump from the base, then get back up into the helicopter to make the actual lift. You can make it from where you are, just from the top of the refinery there. It does have enough reach with the winches, but as I said, the longer the winches get, the more likelihood there is of them tangling or just continuing to sway, even though the helicopter is fairly stationary. Because I'll be jumping from pilot to winch operator, that's not going to be ideal. So I'm going to give myself the best chance and try and only be about 20 meters above the target when I make the lift, which will be down where the gantries are, the fueling gantries. So we'll try and make this as little as possible analog driving a truck, and much more about analog flying a helicopter. Just quickly show you the navigation lights too, because they're cool. Having flashing lights is always a good thing. There are also cockpit lights in case it's a bit murky for you. Alright, so back to daytime. When you're about this far away, probably actually a little bit earlier, thrusting down and untrimming to slow down. So it's just behind us there. I'm going to yaw to bring us around. You can also yaw perfectly safely while you're at full speed. It's much better than trying to bank. It doesn't really act like a normal aircraft because it is a rotary wing, so flat yaw, flat turns are much better than trying to bank. You've still got the altitude hold on, so you're going to need to move to manual control. When you want to descend, you'll want to have a collective of around about negative 13, 14, something like that. At this stage it's not doing anything because I'm still got the altitude hold on. But having that preset means that when I disengage the altitude hold, I should start to just very slowly descend. So I'm going to park on this corner, far corner. The idea being I want my one wheel on the bridge, and then my nose wheel and my back rear wheel on the silo. I'm going to disengage my altitude hold now, and we should see starting to descend a little bit slowly, so I might reduce collective a bit more. Now it is a very big helicopter, so if you are losing height, like I am, that's probably a bit much, and you'll want to start to pull out of it a little bit earlier than you would for a normal helicopter because it is so heavy. So a little bit away from where I wanted to be. But losing height much more gently now, so. Maybe a little bit too gently. There we go. So So I'm just tapping 1 there to increase my rate of descent, and then I'll tap 2 to arrest it a little so that I can come back, and then tap 1 again. Oh, I think I've not landed my nose correctly, so that's no good. We'll need to scooch over left a little bit. And about there. So I know it looks a little precarious. It's perfectly safe. So I'm going to make my collective fine, which is aligning it with the direction of travel so you don't get as much lift. Course is the opposite, so turning it. If we make it fine below 15, so I've reduced it right down, we don't get any thrust now. So I can also throttle the rotors down entirely. You never want to leave the vehicle with its rotors going, particularly once you turn the generator off, because you will run out of battery very quickly. So let's turn off all of our lights as well. Effort to save as much power as possible, and then kill the generator. Okay, that was precarious. Maybe I should get out the other side. Yes, that looks much better. Now I shall try and do this as quickly as possible. So you can pick it up, as I said, from here, but that's a long lift. Not that it is incapable of it, but it's just difficult, particularly when you're doing it one player. You have to continually jump from the pilot seat to the winch operator seat, and that can be problematic in terms of accuracy. It is a pretty cool truck. There are cooler trucks on the workshop, but it's not bad a truck. Particularly the ones by Demon 13 I think are pretty good. Okay, now down here is fairly unobstructed, so it should make a good place to do the pickup. We don't have to be in any particular alignment, so I might just do it there anyway. Line it up, can't help myself. And park brake. Alright. Now, last thing we want to do is make sure that that's disconnected so we don't end up picking up the entire truck. It is rather big, isn't it? That's settled a little during my absence. And I didn't turn the mains off, that was silly. However, turned everything else off, so the battery is fine. Turn the generator back on. And bam. Okay, and bam! There we go. Alright, charger settled down. Let's throw it up. So, I think we probably want that around about. Yeah, let's go with that. Or, let's try that. Just to make sure. And we'll, because we're on manual control still, just going to feed in some collective. Oh, better hit that. Track the landing gear. And rotate. Okay. So I'm currently at 50 meters. I think that 30 was not too ambitious. Just using a WSA&D at the moment, so pitching and rolling. Get myself into position. And as I said, I might lose some altitude here. Bad. It's usually easier to tell when you put the winches down a little. Way off target. Okay. So a little bit of roll. You know what? I think we can actually do this from a lot further down, which will make it easier. Let's lose another 10 meters. Let's see where that puts us. And then we could even lose another 5. Okay. So let's get these winches back up again. That wasn't ideal. Just bring them up again and kill all that swing. Okay. So I'm going to turn one of the winches on and then try and line that one up. Whoa, not that one. Oh, done. So, once we settle down a little bit, they should all start to more or less sit where they need to sit, because we've got one of them aligned. So I'm just going to yaw a little. There we go. And now we need to come back a touch. And now I should be able to get some of the others connected. Look at that. Okay. So now pressing 2 to bring us up. I know that's a little bit violent, but we made it that speed because if you have to extend them 100 meters and you have them at 1, you'll run out of fuel before you get them extended. Alright. 15 meters is probably a little low to be just throwing the thrust on. I might change it to, I don't know, let's go for 65 meters. I'll also feed in a little bit of forward trim just to get some maximum speed. Because as you can see, the low fuel light is flashing, below 500 litres. So we've used half of our fuel. But considering we now just have to drop off and then go home, and home is that waypoint, 12 kilometres, so we should be good. And if that's annoying you, don't look at it. Okay, 3.6. Demonstrate to the flat turning. It's quite agile in terms of rotation for something so big going so fast anyway. I might just gain a little bit more height too because there are some towers and things on these rigs. And from this height that we're going to be at, we could drop it to the surface of the water if necessary. So we should be fine. So coming up on it, like I say, 750 meters is probably a good place to kill throttle. And then kill forward trim. And now we're on manual. So I'm just going to pitch forward a little bit until we're over that. And then jump in the crane operator's seat and lower it down. And then we can just get that all home. close enough. Okay, so let's detach. So as you can see, this is why they're tuned to that speed. They're not as fast as they could be because that's just too violent, but this at least means it doesn't take an age to retract them. Alright, 7.9 kilometers to go. The ID is already on, everything's fine. Let's just throttle up. And a little bit of forward trim. And even though we have 340 litres left in each tank, we are more than fine. We've only used 2/3 of our tanks. So a little bit more demonstration of how fast it turns. And this is at 160 knots, so she's quite stable. And even at this speed, where when you are releasing now, it doesn't drift back the other way like a plane would. Although sometimes there's just a little bit of residual yaw, you see that? It's just slowly creeping around, so just a tap or two. Okay, 3, 4, 5. Almost there. Home sweet home. About 15, I think, is nice. Now we're on manual control again. Holding one down a little just for a moment there to get some descent. Put out our landing gear. Maybe roll over this way a little. See, we're coming down fairly fast, so let's bring that up. And then holding one down again just a moment, because I was a bit violent with that. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Roc class ultra heavy lift helicopter. So I hope you enjoy it, and happy lifting.